Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and thank you for coming despite these rainy days and your busy schedules. I really appreciate your keen interest in the GIC talk. I am Hellman-Kang here as the new volunteer at GIC. Before the talk begins, make sure your cell phones have been turned off or switched to silent mode. Now, let's begin. These days, in this country, there seems to be an increase in the sexual assault and the rape in the news. After watching these news stories, it seems to me that safety for women ought to be a growing concern as well. Here to share the reality that women all around the world face is Leigh Hellman-Kang. She organized and directed last year's performance of Vagina Monologues in Gwangju, a project dealing broadly with women's issues, and is here today to talk about violence against women and about this year's V-Day in Gwangju. So, are you ready to meet her?
Of course.
Now, let's welcome our speaker, Leigh Hellman-Kang, with a big round of applause.
Hello.
Thank you for your round of applause. So, could the lights be? All right, great. So first of all, I'd like to apologize because I'm sick today, so my voice is not perfect. But I hope everyone can hear me, and I hope you can understand my presentation. So as Kyung-Seok said, I am Leigh Hellman-Kang, and I am the director and organizer of this year's production of the Vagina Monologues. And I was also the director and organizer of last year's production of Vagina Monologues in Gwangju, which was the first English performance of the Vagina Monologues in Gwangju. So, first of all, how many people have heard of the Vagina Monologues? Could you raise your hand? All right. For those of you who have not, I will tell you that, of course, it sounds a little strange. Vagina, of course, in Korean is jil, women's parts of her body, and monologues is a performance. So, what are the Vagina Monologues about, and why are we doing it here in Gwangju, especially for the second time in a row? So, my talk is about our second campaign, about what we did, about what we're doing, and about why it's necessary. You can't see very well, but here's a picture of the performers last year at our venue. There you can see there are women and men, and they were not only performers, but they were also organizers. They put on events, they led community speeches and activities. So what did we do last year? Last year we had 2 performances of the Vagina Monologues. About 200 tickets were sold. Both of our shows were sold out. And we had foreign and Korean audience members. We tried as much as we could to include Korean translations of the monologues in our performances. So we were very serious about engaging the Korean community and the foreign community. Not just the English teaching Western foreign community, but also the other foreign communities here. We also had several events. We had a music and yoga workshop. We had an open mic night, a performance night. We had a GIC talk, and we had a expression, a writing workshop, and a bake sale. The reason for these events was to encourage community participation and also to raise money. So why did we want to raise money? We raised, as you can see at the bottom, more than 2 million won. 95% of that money went to the community. 10%, 236,000 won, went to the International Women's Organization. Last year it was about women and girls in Haiti, supporting them. 85% of our money went to women's organizations in Gwangju. We gave 250,000 won to our house, Ritu. To Ain Boktuan, we gave 550,000 won, and 550,000 won went to Pyeongnam as well. All three of these are shelters for single mothers here in Gwangju. They are the only shelters for single mothers here in Gwangju. And we also gave 774,000 won to the Gwangju Settler Women's Support Center. Gwangju Iju Yosam Jiwan. So 95% of our money went to the community. The rest of the money, 5%, went to help us prepare for our performance. But we also paid a lot of our own money to do this performance. So, what are we doing now? Let's look again at the global picture. The United Nations defines violence against women as any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or mental harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life. This means that violence against women can be physical, it can be words, it can be sexual, it can be threats. There are many different types of violence against women. And why is it important? Why do we care about it? Violence against women is global. It's a global problem. It's a systematic problem. It's in our cultural systems. It's a health crisis. Violence against women destroys women's health. It's cyclical. It's a circle. It keeps happening. It is a violation of female human rights. And it is endemic. It is not stopping. There are many different types of violence against women. Many people talk about rape and sexual violence in Korean, right? 성폭행, 강간. These are words that we don't usually say, but they are problems, right? Domestic abuse, dating violence, sexual assault, molestation, touching, harassment, child abuse, human trafficking, taking women and selling them, genital mutilation, rape as a tool of war, rape in war, and femicide, killing women because they are women. Here are some statistics. Globally, in the world, between 4 and 44% of women report being victims of sexual violence at least once in their lives. Globally, between 15 and 71% of women report physical and or sexual violence by their husbands, their boyfriends, their girlfriends, their partners at some point in their life. And globally, 4 million women are trafficked, are kidnapped and sold every year. 4 million women. There are a lot of statistics in this presentation, so I will try to say the important ones. These are some statistics about Western countries. In the US, only 6% of rapists will ever spend a day in jail. 15 out of 16 will go free, will not go to jail. Less than half, less than 50% of domestic violence is reported in the United States. In South Africa, 25% of young men admitted that they had had sex with a woman without her consent. They had raped her. This is before they are 18 years old, younger than 18, the men. Also in South Africa, a study of people aged 13 to 23 years old found that 42% of females reported being a victim of dating violence, their boyfriends being violent to them. On average, 2 women in England and Wales, the UK, well, some of the UK, are killed every week by their partners, their current partner or their ex-partner. 2 women every week. Every day in Canada, more than 3,000 women with their 2,500 children are living in shelters to escape domestic violence. Boys who witness their father's violence, sons who watch their fathers be violent, are 10 times more likely to grow up and also be violent. 1 in 3 people believe that a woman who acts flirtatiously, a woman who is talking with a man, saying, oh, you're very handsome. 1 in 3 people believe she is partially responsible if she is raped. And in South Korea, as of 2011, 60 sex crimes were reported every day. But the prosecutors, the government, believe that the real number is much higher. So you've probably heard a lot of stories about sexual violence. You've probably heard about a lot of foreign crimes. Last year there was a very famous case in Suwon, right? The Suwon murder case. It was a man. He was from China, but he was ethnically Korean, but he was Chinese. And he kidnapped and raped and murdered and dismembered a Korean woman. In the media, this was a foreign problem. The Chinese, the foreigners are coming and killing our women. You also hear about foreigner drug use, foreigners using drugs. I can tell you I have never used drugs in my life. Honestly, I haven't. But we hear about it. We hear about English teachers acting inappropriately with their students. English teachers not being good teachers. And we hear about the US military committing sexual assaults against women, Korean women, right? In 1992, Kenneth Lee Markle, very famous case, he kidnapped and brutally killed a Korean prostitute. He was sentenced to 15 years in Korean prison. In 2011, another US Army soldier, Kevin Flippen, got 10 years in prison for the rape of a 17-year-old Korean girl. I'm sure you've heard of these stories in the news. But maybe you haven't heard of some of these other stories. In 2011, 3 Korea University, Kodae, medical students were accused of raping a female classmate. Their fathers were lawyers and doctors. They did not get arrested. They had no punishment. A man sexually assaulted a young woman on the Seoul Metro. They discovered he was a judge, a Seoul High Court judge. The next day he quit, but he was not arrested. A 19-year-old female US soldier arrived at Incheon, got a taxi at Incheon Airport. She was raped by the taxi driver. The taxi driver was initially given 10 months in jail. But then another judge said he had no time in jail. He could go free because there was not enough evidence that he didn't use enough violence. He was not violent enough. And there was no evidence of her refusing his advances. She didn't clearly say no. A Filipino woman was raped and beaten so badly that she only survived because she pretended to be dead. She stayed in Korea to try and get justice. But as of 2009, as of now, there is no progress in her case. This year, 2012, a 54-year-old Korean man is convicted of sexually assaulting a mentally handicapped 15-year-old Korean girl in Gapyeong. He's initially given 3 years in jail, but the Seoul High Court said, no jail, you can go free. Because he expressed regret. He said sorry. A Korean man kills his wife from Vietnam because she was going to leave with their baby, because he was violent to her. He's arrested, but I can't find any more information about his case. And a 24-year-old American Hagwon teacher is raped by 4 Korean university students. 2 of them are 18 years old. They decide to rape her after meeting her at a bar and getting drunk together. There have been several other, this is just a few cases. There are so many cases like this that don't get big news reporting. You can't see this picture clearly, but you see the man's hand. Where is his hand going? So the situation in South Korea. This is a lot of statistics. I will go a little bit fast, so I'm sorry. But I want to start with this study, 2012. 4,810 South Korean middle school and high school boys and girls are surveyed about their ideas about sex. The question, violence is one way in which a man can arouse a woman. If a man is violent to a woman, the woman likes it. 5% of the boys and 4% of the girls said yes. Men should have the right to pay for sex. 29% of boys and 8.8% of girls said yes. Men are unable to control their sexual desires as they are instinctive. Men cannot control, if they want to have sex, they can't control it. 19% of boys and 15% of girls said yes. This is South Korean middle and high school boys and girls. Here are a lot of statistics. I'm not going to read all of them. I'll read the important ones. 4% of Korean women are or will be victims of rape or attempted rape in their lifetime. This is just on the reports, how many women go to the police. Many women don't go to the police, so they don't know. The number of victims of rape or sexual assault under the age of 20, younger than 20 victims, increased 44% between 2006 and 2008. The number of teenagers who are teenagers who are raping or attacking them, increased by 60%. The rates of spousal abuse, husbands and wives abusing each other, in Korean marriages are 23.5% physical, 50.7% emotional, 13.9% economic, about money, taking money, keeping money, and 13.5% sexual. When their husbands were physically abusive, when their husbands beat them, hit them, 33.7% of Korean women did not take any action. They didn't do anything. 54.6% of Korean police officers feel that it is not essential for the police to intervene in domestic violence. More than half of the police officers think it is not important for police officers to take care of domestic violence. In rural Korean communities in the countryside, 1 out of 3 marriages are between a Korean man and a foreign woman, usually from Southeast Asia or China, or the Philippines, which is also Southeast Asia. Many are arranged through marriage brokers. They cost to get a woman less than 10 million won, less than $10,000. 44.6% of immigrant women, non-Korean women married to Korean men, are abused during their relationship. 26.8% of migrant workers, Koreans or non-Koreans who come to Korea to work in factories and jobs, report being physically abused, hit, beat in their work. 14% report being sexually abused. 76% of Korean female workers experience sexual harassment at the workplace. Most of them from their bosses. And on average, 1 soldier every week is sexually assaulted in the army. Usually by their other soldiers, their peers or their commanding officers. So is violence the only thing that's hurting women? This over here, of course, is an advertisement for a diet supplement. You can look like this. Look at that S-line. And over here, these are 2 pictures. If you can see the difference. Look at the difference in her shape, in her legs, the slimming of her body, of her arms. This one, of course, is heavily photoshopped. This woman is so thin already, and she's beautiful. Why are they photoshopping her? These are the images that Korean men and women see every day. South Korea has the lowest obesity rate in all developed countries. America has a very high obesity rate, but Korea has the lowest, 3.2%. Yet, Koreans consume the most diet pills in the world. 77% of Korean women report regularly dieting. 46.5% of Korean girls between the ages of 1 and 19 believe they are overweight. 75.4% of those girls, 75% have normal body weight, or they are underweight. 20% of Korean women admit they have had plastic surgery. Many people do not admit it. South Korea is the world's 2nd biggest consumer of pornography. South Koreans consume the 2nd largest amount of pornography in the world. Many people will probably say number 1 is America. That is not true. Number 1 is China. America is about number 5 or 6. That is $25.73 billion worth. I cannot convert that to won. It's too much. 72% of Korean women attend university. That's the highest rate in the developed world. Higher than America, higher than the UK. Yet South Korea has the lowest rate of employment of female university graduates in all the developed countries. The highest rate of women go to college and the lowest rate get jobs. On single mothers, this is the Ministry of Health and Welfare website. In 2010, South Korea, usually low levels of education with an unstable job, lives by herself or in a boarding house, has open or impulsive sexual values. A person whose socioeconomic situation is low and who lives apart from her parents. Belief that single mothers are sexually easy. These are Korean single mothers. So, what are we able to do about this? This is a big situation. And it's not just in Korea, it's everywhere in the world. But we can fight this. First of all, we can share knowledge. I am sharing knowledge with you right now. You can agree with me or you can disagree with me, that's okay. But raising public awareness of sexual violence and domestic abuse and women's issues, and it will open up more reporting, more people talking about it, more help. You can stand up for your sisters. This is not just women, of course. Women and men in the whole world are speaking out against socially sanctioned violence against women. They are saying it is not okay. These are our sisters, our mothers, our wives, our girlfriends, our daughters, our friends. You can support without patronizing. Someone who has been a victim of sexual violence is not lower than you. You don't want to save them. You want to join them. You want to be equal with them. You want to share your ideas. You want to share your experience and talk with them. Victims have the power. They can get their power. They can challenge the systems. We want to encourage women and men who are victims of this kind of violence, this kind of cultural ideas, to stand up for themselves, take their power back. Here's a picture. We don't usually talk about it in Korea, but these are sex workers. They're prostitutes. And they have a rally for their rights and deserved respect in Seoul in 2011. Yet they still have to cover their faces. Here's a sign at the 2012 International Day Against Homophobia that says, homophobia is violence. He is also covering his face. But it is steps forward. Women's rights, human rights, are not just about women. They're not just about heterosexual women. Women's rights are about everyone. It's about a community. Women are half of the world. If you attack and destroy half of the world, you are destroying the world. You cannot divide women's ideas, women's issues, women. We cannot divide it like that. So what about these monologues? We've talked a lot about issues and things that are happening. So what about the monologues? The Vagina Monologues started in 1996 as a play. It was written by the American author and activist Eve Ensler. She interviewed more than 200 women in the United States and in other countries. And she made monologues about their stories. The Vagina Monologues are not just stories about sex. They're stories about women's experiences, women's feelings in the world, and women's power. About sex and relationship and violence against women. In 1999, so 1996, the play started. Very small play. In 1999, it expanded into V-Day, which is a collection of events in the whole world. And the money they raise goes back into the community, just like we did here. So, V-Day events are in America, they're in the UK, Australia, New Zealand. They're in China, they're in South Africa, they're in Egypt, they're in Russia, they're in South Korea. And the money goes back to helping women in the communities. So women in the whole world are helping, women and men are helping themselves. This year, they started something called 1 Billion Rising. You can't really see it. The idea is that 1 billion women in the world, 1 billion, will be victims of sexual violence. So on February 13, 2003, they had an event. This event happened in many countries, many different times. The event was really dancing. People got together in groups, they came into the public areas, and they danced. Men and women, and they danced to show that they will fight against violence against women. They support stopping violence against women. So over 1 billion people in 207 countries. The Vagina Monologues has been performed in 140 countries and translated into 48 languages, including Korean. There are a Korean translation. Every year it's performed in Seoul by famous Korean actresses in Korea. It's also performed in Busan, Changwon, Jeju, Gwangju, Gwangju, Ulsan, Suwon, many places, usually by groups of foreigners who start the campaign. It's been 15 years. And V-Day has raised over $85 million to help stop violence against women, to support women's organizations. So V-Day isn't about one person, it's not about one group, it's about everyone. And it is time for Gwangju to rise as well, to join in this campaign. I'll finish with a quote by Eve Ensler. She says, "When you rape, beat, maim, mutilate, burn, bury, and terrorize women, you destroy the essential life energy of the planet. When you attack women, you attack the planet." So this year, we have several events we've already done. We had a dance workshop, we had a bake sale, an art workshop. Today, the GIC talk. Thank you for coming. Next week we have a performance night, an open mic night, a performance night. In 2 weeks we have a volleyball event. We planned some volleyball, raise some money, some more money. And at the end of the month, this 27th and 28th of April, we will be having our performances, 3 performances. 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday at the Gwangju Art Hall, Gwangju Art Hall, in Korean, is what it is, downtown. The tickets are 8,000 won. If you buy ahead of time, 10,000 won at the door. So we hope that you will join us. We have Korean translations, we have Korean performers who will also be performing in Korean. We have foreign performers, we have performers from many countries, from America, Canada, the Philippines, South Africa, the UK. Yes. So we have a lot of different performers, and of course Korean. So we hope that you'll come out and support us. And even if you don't want to come, if you don't like plays, if you don't like this, we hope that you'll support us by buying some delicious snacks or coming to our events. The money, this year's money, we've already raised almost 1.5 million won. Already, without ticket sales. We hope to get a lot more money this year, and 95% of that money will go to the same organizations. 우리 집, 편한 집, 애인 복지원, the Gwangju 이주 여성 지원센터. all of 95% of our money will go back to those organizations. So we hope that you will come out and support us. And I hope that you will start talking about these issues in your life. Talk to the women, talk to the men, and see if you can start sharing ideas about how we can improve this situation, how we can keep getting better. So that is the end of my presentation. I would love it if people have some questions, and thank you very much for coming and listening.
Thank you for your time. Yeah, you can stand right there, it's fine. Now we'll begin the question and answer portion of the talk. If you did not receive a piece of paper when you came in, you can raise your hand and one of our volunteers will give you a piece of paper for you to write the question on. Also, before we begin, I'd like to ask you to please not raise your hand to ask your question directly. We prefer that you submit it in a written format. Okay? So with that out of the way, I wanted to start with a few questions just about you.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about where you're from?
Yes, I'm from the United States. I'm from around Chicago. I earned a bachelor's degree in English from the University of Illinois at Chicago. I've been in Gwangju. I've been in Korea and Gwangju for about more than 4.5 years. And I taught for 3 years at Gwangju Goldongakyo, Gwangju Boys High School. And now I'm a visiting lecturer at Gwangju Kyoikdaekyo, Gwangju University, or Gwangju National University of Education.
Okay. And why specifically Gwangju? Was there anything that drew you to the city?
I was placed here. But yeah, I came here as a Fulbright scholar. Not a Fulbright scholar, a Fulbright grantee. Fulbright is a government program a scholarship between America and other countries. So I came here originally with Fulbright for 3 years, and then Fulbright, every year maybe 70 people come with Fulbright. It's a very difficult scholarship to get, and they don't put anybody in Seoul. So nobody's in Seoul, everybody's in other parts of Gwangju, or of Korea. And I asked to be near a city, and I wanted to teach at a boys' high school. So, because I'm crazy. So I got placed in Gwangju, and I fell in love with it. It's very much my second hometown, so I stayed here.
Okay, great. How long do you plan to stay? Do you have any plans?
How long do I plan to stay? I'm not sure. If you can tell by my name, I've recently been married. I'm married to a Korean man, so I definitely have strong ties to Gwangju and to Korea, but we'll see. We'll see how life goes.
Okay. Now we will transition to the Vagina Monologues. When did you first get involved?
With the monologues
Yes.
in general?
Mm-hmm.
I heard about the Vagina Monologues when I was younger, and I went to see a performance in university, but I wasn't involved in it. And when I came to Korea, I spent several years trying to get comfortable with the language and the culture, and then I started to feel like I wanted to be involved in social activities and something that helps the whole community, the foreign and the Korean community. I wanted to do something good like that. So I really care about women's issues, and I thought, I remember the Vagina Monologues, maybe we can do that again. Try to get that started. So we started last year, and I've been involved as an organizer and a director since then.
Do you plan to do it every year?
I don't want it to stop. I want it to keep going and happening in Gwangju. It's a lot of work, and every year the situation is different. So I hope that actually the VDA organization, the rules are that you shouldn't, if you do it for 2 years, you should give it to another person the next year to do. So I hope that next year more people say, I want to be a leader. And so I can help them, but give them the leadership role.
Okay. How is this year's project different from last year's?
Well, I feel like we're more engaged with, because we have 3 Korean performers this year. Last year we only had 1. I feel like we're more engaged with the Korean communities, and we're more engaged with, we have a Filipino performer this year, so we are also more engaged with the non-Western kind of communities, the communities of women and men from Southeast Asia, from Southeast Asia, from China. I hope we're a little bit more engaged. And last year it was very kind of, everything was new and everything was like, it's crazy. So this year I hope that we're a little bit more relaxed so we can do more ambitious events.
Okay. What are some of the greatest challenges to organizing an event like this?
Well, if I'm being perfectly honest, one of the most difficult challenges is, how do I put this? Being taken seriously by the larger Korean community. When we were trying to get a venue, we had a report in Korean. It was all set and it was nice, but we would send it to many venues, and they kind of ignored us. They don't know who we are. We're a foreign group. They're like, well, so it's hard sometimes being taken seriously by the larger Korean community. But definitely smaller Korean groups, the GIC, have been really great in helping us along. So I think that's one of the biggest difficulties, and just managing lots of people and lots of events. It's good and it gets everything going, but it's a lot of work.
Have you noticed a big difference in the response from the Korean community this year compared to last year?
Well, I'm not actually sure, because we're not, I feel like I won't know that until we're at the performance time, but more Koreans wanted to get involved at the start, so that was a difference. I think last year most Koreans just didn't know what it was about. They were like, I don't know what this is, and we weren't able to reach them very well. So I think we have gotten more Koreans involved, and I hope that more Koreans will continue to hear about it or remember it from last year and say, oh yeah, and kind of come back and bring their friends. So I hope it will be a even bigger response than last year.
Okay. You mentioned that Koreans are getting more involved in the project. Have Korean women in particular taken up the project on their own in any circumstances?
In Gwangju?
Or in Korea?
In Korea, definitely. As I said, in Seoul, they put on a performance every year with really famous Korean actresses, who I can't remember their names right now. Every year it's different. And that's the Korean community and Korean women putting on this performance. So it's definitely, Koreans have definitely taken it on themselves as well. In Gwangju, I think we're all still working together, but hopefully in the future I would love to see kind of Korean women also taking on bigger parts of things.
Okay. Have you seen any particular political impact in Korea as a result of...
As a result of Vagina Monologues?
Yeah.
No.
Not even close? Okay.
But things like the Vagina Monologues, things like talking more openly about sexual violence has started changing, in some small ways, the laws specifically. They've started trying to, and this is not the Vagina Monologues doing it, it's a lot of changes in Korean representation, media representation of sexual violence. So I know they recently abolished the part of the law that said if a rapist was drunk, he would get a less serious sentence, because a lot of rapists were saying, well, I was drunk, and they didn't go to jail. So that's been abolished. So it is changing, and
Okay.
it's definitely not because of me.
All right. Can you talk a little more about the single mother population in Gwangju? Things like, are their numbers growing, and where is the support for their organizations coming from? The shelters.
Yes, that is a very good question. I don't know if their numbers are growing. Last year, we weren't able to visit the sites themselves. This year, we visited all 4 of the sites. But because of social pressures, they are rather closed off. So they get support from the government, but it's a very small amount from the government. They also get a support from a larger organization that I don't remember the name in Korean. It's an adoption organization. Because in the past, there was a strong push for single mothers to give up their children for adoption. In 2008, the law changed. Women have to, if they want to give up their child for adoption, they have to spend a week with the child, bonding, before they make the final decision. So that changed, and a lot of women now are keeping, a lot more than the past, are keeping their children. So a lot of these organizations have shifted from kind of adoption support to supporting the women with housing, with job training, education training, trying to prepare them for how they can live on their own and support their child as single mothers.
Okay. Do you know anything of the age of consent in Korea? Can you talk about that?
Oh, I do, but I suddenly forget. The age is
13.
Yes, it's 13. Who said that? Yes, it's 13. No, I was just remembering because I had seen a whole list of age of consent in all of Asia, and Korea was one of the lowest. Yeah, it's 13, and I don't actually think the issues with a lot of, especially a lot of rape cases I've come across, have not been issues of age-related consent. So it's not been that, oh, this is the 15-year-old victim is, oh, it's a child, so it's statutory rape as Americans would know it. Those issues usually don't come up, and it usually is concerned with a lot of other factors. So I've actually not heard, in the research I've done, stuff about specific consent laws affecting how sexual assaults are viewed. And I actually don't know. It would be an interesting thing to ask my students if they're aware of what the age of consent is. Because I'm not sure if a lot of younger Koreans are also aware of what the age of consent is.
Okay. You mentioned that a much higher number of Korean women graduate from college here than in other countries. Can you compare broadly gender equality in, say, the United States and Korea in other aspects, not just college graduation?
I mean, actually, it's a higher number of women who attend college. There's probably still a higher number that graduate, but it's I don't know if it's number 1 in the developed world. However, I mean, the wage disparity between how much women make and how much men make is higher than in the States. But in the States, it's not $1 to $1. It's $1 to 77 cents, I think. I think one of the biggest differences is that and this is both positive and a negative, it's talked about more in the States. And because it's talked about, people are more aware of it, the women's rights issues, body image issues, sexual violence, all these things. And yet, there is also a stronger backlash that's come out against it. People, rallying against the various and sundry things that are happening with abortion rights, with birth control rights, healthcare rights in the States. You don't see that as much here because it's not brought up, it's not discussed. So, you can easily get birth control here, but many women don't. They could. Are they aware of it? Do they not want to go and do it? Is it social cultural pressures? I'm not sure. But it's easier to get birth control here as a woman than it is in the States, and yet it doesn't happen as much. So I think there are a lot of factors going on there, and it's not, I don't want to simplify it by saying, well, these are these statistics, and these are, even though my presentation was full of statistics, I don't want to simplify it just by well, America's here and Korea's here. It's, a lot of things are playing into it, but I would say that because things are still not talked about, a lot of issues, especially legal issues, domestic violence laws, sexual minority laws, rape and sexual assault laws are much sometimes non-existent, or in some ways what Americans would look at as archaic. So I think in the laws you can definitely see the differences.
Okay. All right, we've got about 3 more questions before we wrap things up. And one person wants to know, universities tend to be pretty progressive. Have you been getting any support from universities here in Korea or in Gwangju?
Like from the university administrations? Not really. A lot of the people who are in our campaign work at universities or are involved with universities. People who support it are, professors as well as staff members of universities. But I don't know. I strongly doubt that university administrations would voice support for this kind of event. And not just because they're like, no, women, I like women's violence. Not because of that. I think there are a lot of political issues at play. So we haven't gotten direct support from university administration.
Okay. Do the Vagina Monologues get any criticism? And if so, where does it tend to come from?
Yes. The Vagina Monologues gets a lot of criticism. And they come from lots of different places. There's the typical, what people think of as, people saying, well, women and men are equal, we don't need women's rights. There's that kind of criticism, what you expect. But actually there's a lot of criticism from people who feel that it's set up in a way that's not inclusive. It's not inclusive of transgender women. It's not inclusive of sexual minorities or women of color, not white women. There are people who feel that it's not, that it's marketed in a way that's too sexual or not sexual enough. There are people who feel like, there are women feminists who feel like it's not, doesn't support the message of what they feel feminism should support. For the record, I don't think the Vagina Monologues are perfect. I disagree with some things about them, and I understand lots of ideas about them, but I do think they're a good tool for helping further the dialogue about women's issues. So there definitely is criticism, and I would say that some of it is valid, some of it is not valid, but some of it is valid.
Okay, this will be our final question. You mentioned that you specifically wanted to work in an all-boys school. How do you raise awareness of gender equality in your teaching?
Well, I no longer work in an all-boys school.
Well, when you did.
When I did. I think it's a false stereotype that boys are somehow more difficult to kind of engage with women's issues than girls. I think that saying that men are boys, well, they won't understand, they won't accept it, that is not fair to men and boys. Men and boys have the ability, of course, to care about these issues. So I tried to present a strong image of women, a strong image of a teacher, a leader, someone who my boys could respect. And I would challenge them if they said things that were not appropriate, but they didn't a lot. And I would have discussions with them about, well, what do you think about women and men doing the same jobs? What do you think about just naturally? And they often had very interesting and varied ideas. So I think really you need to talk about it. In small ways. I do it at my university too, with my university boys and girls. And sometimes the boys' answers really surprise me, and some of the girls' answers really surprise me too. So it's about not seeing, well, this is men, this is women, and this is how we talk about it. It's about treating people the same and saying, you're people and you can respect this issue and you can understand it and you can do something about it. We can do something about it together. So I think it's trust that men can be responsible. They're not, they have control over their actions and choices. And they can do amazing things, just as women can.
Okay, that's the end of the Q&A. Let's give our speaker a round of applause.
Also, if anybody cares, I do have a list of all the sources I have for this information if you're interested about where I got my information.
Okay.
So,
if we didn't get a chance to ask one of your questions, please feel free to come up to the speaker after, or stick around to the discussion group and ask her directly. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your wonderful speech. We have a small token of appreciation for you that will be presented by Dr. Shin Kyung-Gu.
In fact, we have to thank you and your co-participants in the Vagina Monologue because you are a model in getting involved with community issues and then social issues. In fact, I think that I really appreciate the international volunteer working in and outside GIC because you are showing us how we can change the community. And then VM is one of the important devices for you to use. And then I feel very proud of getting involved with you because while listening to you, I think about how wonderful it is in this, not only with your involvement, but also usually in international organizations in Korea, international residents are simply beneficiaries. But at GIC or your example as well, you are not simply getting benefit, but you are giving benefit to different organizations through your involvement. And then you are giving benefit to GIC as well. And then sharing the benefit all together. So I really appreciate your initiative and involvement. So also, as I frequently talk to many people, GIC is not helping anybody else, but simply we are helping ourselves to help ourselves. So we are helping each other, and then you are helping us as well. So thank you very much for that. I do not read it.
Following the talk, the discussion group will discuss about women's rights and feminism. So if you want to participate, please remain here and move to the front of the room following the talk. I hope you enjoyed today's talk. Next week, we'll talk about Peace of Edna and the Mafia by our GIC Talk volunteer, Kelly Saigon. Again, thank you so much for visiting today and have a nice weekend.